How to get the most out of your contractor relationships. Now, how much money are you spending on contractors and are you actually getting a return? In both of my businesses, my core team members are employees. However, we still have dozens of contractors that we use for certain things like YouTube ads, graphics, right? Things like that. Now, I want you to be thinking about this as we move forward. Now, today I'm going to have a free template for you. Just comment the word agenda if you'd like to see our one-on-one meeting agenda that can be modified and used for a contractor meeting. If you're listening to this, just DM me on Instagram, the word agenda at Stacy Tuschel, and I'll get that over to you. Now, just because these people are not your employees does not mean you can't have high expectations. I think a lot of times people will say things like, wow, it's just a contractor, or they're not really a part of my team. I look at my contractors as just an integral part of my team as my employees. If I am paying you for any sort of results, trust me when I say I have high expectations. Okay. So here's what I want you to know. You can have and or request from contractors. Number one, weekly meetings. Okay. We're thinking, why would I need a weekly meeting? To get on the same page. So every one of the contractors I am working with close, like if I'm working with somebody to do my YouTube or Facebook ads, or I've got somebody doing graphics or who else do we have? Like those are weekly meetings, right? We have a marketing consultant we're using right now, weekly meetings. Now, obviously, if I'm using a videographer or a photographer and it's once every quarter, I'm not having weekly meetings with them. But you understand you want to have meetings with them and the frequency based off of how often they're working in your business. So I'm getting daily Facebook ad reporting because there's a lot that happens in a day. But I wouldn't request daily from somebody who's maybe doing something on a quarterly basis, okay? So don't think you cannot have or request this. Even if they're like, we don't normally do that. Okay, well, would you do that? Like if I sign this contract and we decide to move forward, can we get on the same page? Even if it's a 5-minute check-in, 15-minute check-in, it's worth it. Okay, next, you can ask for reports. Now, again, how often depends on what you're doing and how often the things are changing. Don't be micromanaging and asking for a daily report when it's just not needed. So every contractor you're using, first look and see, are they suggesting it? Do they have this in their contract? And if not, just because you already signed a contract, you've been working with somebody for 6 months, doesn't mean you can't say, would you be able to get me a weekly report just so I know like what's been happening or what you're doing or what I can get ready for you? Okay. These reports are great things to have in between your meetings. Okay. Next piece. Accountability. What did they promise and what is happening? Oh my goodness. Like this is where I think I'm really good at this is I hold people accountable. If you told me I was going to get X and I don't get X, I will say, hey, what's going on? Okay. Now, we just hired somebody for our studio for Facebook ads and they were doing some Google stuff as well. Okay. And it was not an inexpensive investment to say the least. Okay. And I did my due diligence. I had heard they were working with a few other people in my industry and I knew some people. I had some friends that they had mentioned. I was like, oh, perfect. So I text my friend, I call somebody else up. I'm like, hey, tell me more. Like it was over like a $1,250 a month investment. And they quoted me for a 12-month contract. Okay. So I'm asking my friend, I'm not getting into something that's that kind of money. And we have the money. It would be very easy for me to pay in full over $12,000 and not think twice about it. But I don't make decisions like that just because it's easy or I have the money. I need to make sure I'm getting a return on my investment. So what happened was, first of all, I have to side tip I want to tell you about. He came to me with this 12-month contract. I wasn't completely sold after talking to some of my friends. I felt like some of them weren't tracking very well to be able to tell if it actually was working. So even though I did my due diligence, I didn't really have the data to say, oh, they're going to get me results. So I said to him, I'm not willing to do a 12-month contract, but I will do a 6-month contract. Okay. I had said to him, I know how this works. And I know that we should be getting results by month 6. And if we're getting results, we're totally going to stick with you. Like, why would we not? Right. So I wanted to know if we can negotiate. He actually agreed. Okay. This was huge because they were not good. And I did not have to pay for month 7 through month 12 because we negotiated the contract. Okay. Now here's what's crazy is I think they just assumed I wasn't going to hold them accountable, that they knew that they may or may not get me results, but they probably think, well, these other studios that we're working with, they don't know how to track, they don't know how to do this, right? So all of a sudden, they agreed they were going to be doing this and getting these results and all the things. And I kept going back saying, where are those results? Where are these phone calls? Where are these free trials? I am not seeing that. Okay. And I will tell you, they kept trying to switch gears a little bit and bring up other things we were getting. And I'm like, that's great, but that's not what I paid for. That's not what you had said I was going to be getting. So I want to make sure that you are remembering, what does that contract state? What did they say what they were going to do? How fast did they say they were going to do it? And how can you check in with them on what this looks like? Okay. All right. If you're confused, if you're getting a return, this actually comes up pretty often. I will tell you, I just kept getting very vague, fluffy answers, right? And when you ask somebody something and you feel like they don't actually answer your question, a lot of times people just feel dumb, so they just let that be the answer. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think you answered my question. Are we or are we not getting people from Facebook ads? So, but listen, Google AdWords, you got this many phone calls this month. I'm like, that's amazing. Great on the Google. We got the Google. I'm good. Let's just talk about Facebook ads for a minute. Am I getting people from Facebook ads? And I'm not kidding when I say they would be like, well, your website. I'm like, hold up. You're not listening to me, right? And it's not that they're not listening. They're avoiding the question. Okay. Now, this was not a great investment. I wasted $6,000 plus money, right? That doesn't make me burned to never invest again. This is where you've got to be careful. People will say all the time, like, oh, I want to buy this or I want to hire this, but you know what happened that one time? I'm like, do you know how many stories I could tell you of bad contractors? Like tons in 20 years, tons. However, do you know how many amazing contractors we work with right now that are getting us results? It's so worth it. Okay. Now, inside of Well-Oiled Operations, for those of you that are in there, we go deeper into talking about contractor versus employee, what's allowed, what's not, how to hold accountable, pros and cons of both. This is all in there. So make sure you go check this out. And our agendas for what we talk about at that weekly meeting with them. Okay. Now, for those of you in here that are not in there yet, maybe you're on the fence yet, I want you to go check out, type in the word agenda below. I want you to get our one-on-one meeting agenda that can be used and modified for contractors. Okay. This is a situation where you have to make sure that you are more in control than I think they want you to believe, right? When you hire a contractor, a lot of times what happens is they give you the contract, right? They give you what's included. They tell you what's happening. But I want you to do the due diligence and demand, request what it is you need specifically, okay? So let me share one more story because I want you to see how this can hurt you as well. So I hired somebody, she was a graphics person. Had a friend that used her. Her graphics were beautiful. I'm like, this is easy. Yes. So we hired this person. Actually had quite a few friends using her. We had the worst experience with her. Okay. When I complained, we went to the contract and the contract was 100% in her favor. In fact, the contract even stated that this is what she's promising us, but she can't guarantee. This was like old Stacy that didn't know, that wasn't smart enough to like read the fine lines here, right? You just think it's what you agreed to on your Zoom call, right? So the fine print was like, this is what you're going to get, but I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to get that to you on a monthly basis. It's just an order of priority. It's like, order of whose priority? She's like, well, I have other clients. I'm like, okay, great. Am I getting a deal when you're skipping me because you're doing them? Like, what is happening, right? So that situation I got very burned from. Horrible situation. I learned so much from that. I went back to the contract. I read everything that she wrote. It was all her protection. That contract was for her. This is where I want to make sure when you're reading somebody's contract and there is nothing that says what you're going to get, what your guarantee is. And when I say guarantee, I mean you're guaranteed to get the 24 graphics you paid for by the end of the month. Mine literally said, we're going to give you 24 graphics, but we can't guarantee that we're going to get them to you on time or that month in case we run out of time. Like, wait, what? But how many times do you see this crazy long contract? You just sign your name and you move on, right? So ask yourself, what does the contract do for you? What happens if they're not performing? If I will say to somebody, so you say you can do all of this. What happens in 90 days if that is not happening? In 6 months, what happens if that is not happening, right? And when they say back to me, well, okay, well then we'll be able to cancel the contract or we can do it's like, great, let's put that in there. I want to make sure that I am just as protected as the contractor writing it, okay? You can absolutely ask them to modify. Now, what's going to happen is for some of you, you're going to ask a certain contractor and they're going to go, oh, I'm sorry, I can't put that in there. Oh, I could never guarantee you're going to get these 30 graphics in that month, right? And what happens is all the horrible things that could happen to you, they're going to tell you up front. They're going to say, I could never say that because, oh, I could never do that because, right? Or they're not going to give you an answer. They're just going to say, I can't put that in there. And I want you to think, why not? Why are they hesitant to guarantee me something they're saying they're going to get? Or is somebody so confident they can get you results with Facebook ads, but then yet when you say, great, can you put all of that in writing? They're like, oh, I couldn't put that in writing. It's like, okay, so you're not that confident. You'll say it on Zoom or on camera, but you won't put it in writing, right? All of a sudden true colors come out of what they're able to give you. Now, I gave you a lot of not so great stories with contractors, but I do want you to know that just like anybody you hire, right? Employees, virtual assistants, you name it, you're going to have good experiences, you're going to have bad experiences. The more prepared you are and you do your due diligence and you know how to hold them accountable, have those meetings, get those reports, right? The more you're going to be set up for success. Now, if you're already working with contractors or team members, employees, etc., and you know you need help in this area, I really want you to consider checking out Well-Oiled Operations, okay? And if you haven't already, I want you to DM me on Instagram, the word agenda. We will get that one-to-one meeting agenda over to you that can be modified for contractors. If you are listening on the podcast, just DM me at Stacey Tuschel. Otherwise, if you're watching, you can comment anywhere you're seeing this video and we will get that over to you. All right. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your week. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time.